We got over 200 resumes the next day. And he said, how did you do this? And I said, how come you can't? You
Yeah.
know?
Hey, it's Breaking Barriers, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging podcast. We're here for real talk. We're not afraid to go there. And we want you to come away emboldened and energized to take action and make change.
We believe our diversity, our differences, when joined together by a common set of ideals, makes us stronger.
When I set out to help someone, it is my intention to do just that. I'm not trying to do anything other than meet somebody at their humanity.
Your world has changed, but your dreams shouldn't have to. That's why Kirkwood is your next best step. With affordable, flexible, and close-to-home options, now's a great time to start or finish your Kirkwood degree. Learn more at kirkwood.edu/findyourfuture. Displaced or discouraged at work? Kirkwood can help you learn a new skill or totally reinvent yourself for a brand new career. With so many flexible and affordable options, you can get back on track fast. Learn more at kirkwood.edu/findyourfuture.
What's up, world? What's happening? What's happening? We're back with another episode of Top Ranks Breaking Barriers, brought to you by Kirkwood Community College. We are excited today. This episode is sponsored by Kirkwood Community College. Thank you, Kirkwood, for your continued support. I'm your co-host, Anthony Arrington, managing partner of Top Rank. We're joined by my co-host and Top Rank managing partner, Joy Briscoe. What's up, Joy? How you doing there?
Good morning, Anthony. Good morning, world. I'm excited to be here today for our third episode.
Yes.
Come on, Lucky Three.
Our other co-conspirator in DEI&B crime, Nick Ford, is out today. So, Nick, we'll see you on the next episode. We look forward to hanging out with you. Let's do this, Joy. So, Joy, talk about why do we have this Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging podcast? We call it DEI&B. Why are we doing this, Joy?
You know what? I think much like what our guest today is going to dive into, but I think this was an opportunity for us to be the real, right? And a few people had already taken that name, but I think that would have even been more relevant. We're going to talk about the real work of DEIB. We're going to talk about really what people go through to create environments of inclusion. And we think there's a lot of podcasts out there talking this lingo and jumping on that bandwagon. But because we were already in this space before it became the popular thing to do, before it was the sexy thing to do, I think we've got a unique perspective to offer. And so that's what it's about, right? That's what breaking barriers is. Like, we truly are aiming to break barriers today. And so I think it's so relevant, the guest that we have on today with Fields Jackson, because he's been breaking barriers for a long time. And so talking about what that's like for him and his journey. And then Anthony, me and you met earlier, getting to that nitty and that gritty.
That's right. Well, let's not waste time. Let's get on with our conversation with Fields Jackson. I want to tell you all a little bit about Fields. Fields is currently the CEO and chief cheerleading and Racing Towards Diversity magazine. This is a quarterly magazine that showcases the best and diversity efforts and initiatives being made today. His magazine reaches about 3.5 million people through publication, through newspapers, blogs, and social media outlets. Jackson is also the president of the College Diversity Network. He's the adjunct professor at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a distinguished visiting professor at South Carolina State University in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And he's also a former executive director of the HBCU Business Roundtable. He was recognized by Diversity Best Practices as one of the top diversity thought leaders on Twitter and has been identified as number 13 on the top 100 global influencers, focusing on gender equity, gender equality, and diversity by Analytica, a London-based company. And they help influencers and programs around some of the largest brands in the world. So we got a guy here. Hive Learning recently recognized Jackson as one of the most influential diversity and inclusion leaders in 2019. And Hive said Jackson is an influential diversity and inclusion advocate, an expert who advocates that job seekers conduct their due diligence in finding diverse workplace opportunities through research, networking, and asking the right questions. We're going to talk about that. Jackson received his Bachelor of Arts degree in economics and his bachelor's degree in philosophy from Allegheny College in Meadowview, Pennsylvania. And he has an MBA from Northern Illinois and DeKalb, Illinois. Fields, the man.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I guess I'll start with our questions here today. Again, what a bio, what an amazing bio. And I was telling Anthony, I love your title of chief cheerleader, right? Because I feel like when you do this work, you're always that person in the room that's saying, what about inclusion? What about thinking about people's pronouns? What about thinking about women? What about Black people? And let's be okay with saying Black people,
Yeah.
right? Let's step away from if who we mean is Latino people. If who we mean is Black people, then we need to say that and get okay in that space.
Mhm.
And so, kind of when you talk about that title of being the chief cheerleader for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, kind of talk us a little bit about how you got started with that title. Where was your beginning point at?
If you think about a cheerleader, I don't cheer for everybody.
Love it.
Like Jackson, he's our man. If he can't do it, then But the thing is, I'm not cheering for the other team. So again, it's just not this open. I'm just cheering because you guys know everybody doesn't believe in this stuff. Diversity is a tough conversation. You start talking about diversity, you start talking about critical race theory. I said, where did that come in? We're talking about hiring. So where did we veer off onto that? It boils down to either you believe this or you don't. We cheer for the folks who, for whatever reason, believe it. Not a heavy lift. It's like religion. Do you believe? And if you don't believe, I cut your head off. Okay. All right. The conversion rate's gonna be low. Right?
Yeah.
The next brother in line, do you believe? Oh, absolutely. I just saw what happened. So again, if I gotta force you to believe this. So again, there's folks out there for whatever reason. And it could be because they just got a big lawsuit or they're losing half. So it doesn't really matter to me how you came to this. But now you're realizing that, hey, there's talent, and we believe diversity is talent. What color is smart? What color is a good idea? What color is genius? What color is.
Right.
So again, if I'm blocking people because I got some hang up because of the way you appear to me, I'm losing talent. So we cheer, long story, we cheer for the people that believe.
Yeah.
We try to quickly determine whether or not you believe, if that makes sense. Run some analysis. And again, if this is just a check the box exercise, people just doing that, or it's a photo op. There's some folks out there, they take beautiful pictures, guys. Beautiful. All
Just
the,
amazing
and they
pictures.
take plenty of them. There's a lot of pictures. Everybody's grinning and all stuff. But then you read in the headlines that half the company's suing them so there's a disconnect. Okay, you're getting all these awards.
Come on, Phil.
And how come half your workforce all pissed off? And so
Yeah.
again, we've been doing this a long time. So we have things that we can acid test or just stress test to find out real quickly if you want to do this. And if you don't want to do it, doesn't make you a bad person. So we're not going to stand in front of your building and yell at you. We'll just leave you alone. But you know what? So if you say something, and to Joy's point, if you say something, I don't believe that. So I'm not going to cheer that. Does that make sense?
Yes,
It does. It does.
The silence from our side is deafening. Doesn't mean you're a bad guy. We ain't coming out and walking in front of your building and go boycott. We just leave you alone. Right? Let's talk about standards. Let's talk about how do you get better, right? Who's doing certain things? It's just like a sports team. You know what? If you got somebody, a wide receiver that keeps getting beat, then you find somebody that's not going to get beat. But it becomes pretty simple. We tend to cheer those folks that are doing it, at least from our perspective, the right way, right? So again, just who's doing it right? If I were to start, who would I ask you to follow? So if they feels we don't have this figured out, who would I follow? So I'm going to point you to those companies that, in our estimation, these are the ones that you want to benchmark. Long answer to your question, but we cheer, and it becomes pretty apparent. We see the list of companies that we think are doing a great job, and we're screaming from the mountains about them. The other ones, hey, you know what? Go tell that story to somebody else.
So talk about that. So what's that look like for our listeners, for those companies that you've discovered, you know what, I can't cheer for you? What are some examples of those areas, those situations that you've run into where you've said, you know what, more power to you, I can't cheer for you, I got to walk away?
Oh, one of the companies said, do your homework. Do your homework. Just like anything else, there's a lot of public information if you look, right? Okay, you need to hire a diversity person. Okay, why? There's an honesty that comes out. Well, Fields, we can't seem to find anybody, and we talk to you, and we need your help. Or, hey, you know what? We love diversity. I said, okay. So I Google your company. I look at the board of directors, and they all look like you. I said, okay, maybe there's a different kind of love going on here. Okay, so all your board is. So let's look at your executive team. If all your executive team looks like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You start to see some inconsistencies, right?
Right.
Then let me do a Google search and I'll type your name in and type in the name diversity. Right? And it comes back quick, folks. Google's amazing. It
Oh, it's
comes back quick.
amazing.
Man, 8,000 people are suing this place. All of a sudden, you see all this crazy stuff comes up. It's
It's
like,
so funny
okay.
too, because they in essence told you to Google them, right? Like Google us. And then when
Yeah,
it's
but the
like,
thing is, most people don't. They just, hey, the guy said, no, I'm going to check. When I'm driving down the road, the policeman pulls me over. You have your driver's license? I go, yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right? Now, hopefully you don't snatch me under the car, tase me and all that stuff. But I want to see it. Trust but verify. Hey, if you're diverse, if you're doing all this stuff, then it should be pretty apparent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That other people see this too.
Absolutely.
The thing is, most people don't ask, why are you looking to hire me? Ask the questions. If you got any questions, why are you looking to hire me? How many black people work there now? Simple question. How many black people work there now? And they start shuffling around. What's an easy answer? Hey, 10, 50. They start shuffling around papers. Well, it feels you got to define what black is. Oh, really? Okay, this is the interview, right?
Right.
And we're already into, you mention words. Hey, what happens when I ask for a raise? What happens when I ask for a promotion? You're playing this game early.
Right. You can see that. You
you played that game early. Wow. I just asked a simple question. What's your diversity look like now?
Yeah.
Right?
That's interesting.
Hey,
it reminds me.
It's 3%. Hey, that's low. Well, Fields, that's why we're talking to you, because we want to, you see what I'm saying? So there's an answer that now helps me determine whether or not you really mean this. Right?
Yeah.
So a long answer to your question, but again, to us, we see it like in 15, it doesn't take us long.
Right.
We've been at this for like 15 minutes. It's like, okay, well, Fields, you didn't call us back. Or Fields, you don't talk about us. Well, what did you want me to say?
That's real.
You won all these awards. What did I say? So, take the award, show everybody the award. You're good. So why are you even asking me if you won all, you see, it doesn't make sense. If you won all these awards, why are you even talking to me?
Why are you here? You won all these awards. Those are those check the box awards, right?
Correct. You just got this award. There's magazines handing out awards. They're not diverse.
Yeah.
So we're handing out the diversity award. It's like, really? Okay.
And that's tough.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So then so who are you picking, right, to win these awards? So is it because you ran ahead, or is it, so what happened? You see what I'm saying? And then I go, well, so since you're the authority on this, let's see what your diversity looks like.
Yeah.
Then you go to the magazine, and guess what? All their writers are leaving because they don't have no diversity. But to us, we can do a quick test, and a lot of it's public information, especially. Take a look, check the board of directors. It's real quick. Check the board of directors.
Yeah.
All men, all women, right?
Yeah.
Who's the executive staff? Okay. Do you have employee resource groups? So you have things that kind of indicate that you've got some type of program to do this.
Right.
As opposed to, hey, we need a photo op and we need Fields to stand next to us because get somebody else.
So on that note, I want to kind of change gears a little bit, but really on that note, because one of the things that I've discovered in this space in talking with organizations, and that's why we're so excited to talk to you, because you have such a footprint in the HBCU, the historical Black colleges and university space. You have such a footprint in that space. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, why is it that corporate America is so far behind the 8 ball when it comes to navigating and advocating and focusing on the HBCUs as an area to increase the number of African-American leaders, for example? Why do corporations not see that as an avenue from your view?
Why do we have to have a global pandemic, the murder of George Floyd? There was these alignments of things that maybe will never occur again in our lifetime for people to say, well, maybe I should go to a HBCU, right? But it's
Joy, that's a great, Joy, Anthony, just haven't been in this space a long time. If you're talking to the same people, you're going to get the same answer. So basically it comes down to who are you talking to, right? And if you're in a room of all white men, it doesn't really mean you're racist, but that's I've been on this planet a long time. I don't know what it is to be white. I don't. I see, but what is it to be white? As a white person, I could have, and a lot of white people, I got a black friend. I go, okay, I was talking about the black friend. I go, all right. But you have no idea what it is to be black, right? And that's not right or wrong.
Right.
So George Floyd, because I've been in diversity a long time, diversity was a tough conversation. It still is. Diversity is a tough conversation. reverse discrimination. So I said, where does all this come from? You don't have any diverse people in your company. You need to hire them. So you need to change a couple things. What does critical race theory have to do with that? You want to bring people in here and not have them quit the next day. So George Floyd was a changer to me because I think the world got to see real time what Black people have been complaining about for years. But there was always a reason. And I had people that, I almost call them friends, but good associates. One guy called me after George Floyd. He was in tears because what happened, he saw that. Now, Black people have been talking about that. My grandfather was talking about people that, at least you got to see it with George Floyd. Before, you were just gone. Fields did something with the sheriff. He's gone, right? And nobody's saying nothing because guess what? They didn't want to happen to them. So nobody's saying nothing, right? And then my grandmother would blame me. You knew better. Why were you down there? So my grandmother would actually blame me. I told you about messing with those people. Hey, grandma, I was just driving my car. But what happened, this guy, because he had Black and brown employees, the Black and brown employees came in and everybody got to see that. But that was traumatizing to Black people. Man, you got to see that inhumanity that people have been talking about for centuries, right? And he said, Fields, how could that happen in the United States? I'm like, you've been. He didn't believe, police are here to protect you. I go, yeah, some of them, but some of them are not. So there was this disconnect. Long story short, one of the guys I was talking to said, he told me George Floyd had it coming to him. Oh, I said, coming to him? Really? As opposed to yelling at him. I said, man, you got to talk to me about coming to him. And so there's this mindset. He was on drugs. All right. He was high. I said, okay. He shouldn't have ran. So everything was like, the Black person shouldn't have done. So I said, okay. So I didn't even go that logic. I said, okay, let's follow that all the way out. He was high. So let's just say, you remember Bob Marley?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's say he not only was high, he had a big Bob Marley joint in his mouth. He was running from the cops. He swung at a couple, and he's running down the street with a big TV. Right? All those things. Let's assume he did those. What's the penalty for having a big joint running down the street? It's not you dying. The penalty's not you dying right here on the street. Because, yeah, you're right. The penalty is that you go to court and you get defended just like everybody else. Now they prove you guilty, you go to jail. The penalty is not you dying under somebody's knee because you were doing, he was high. Okay, so what's the penalty for me being high?
Oh, Fields, this is I've never used, facilitation, but I've never used that train of thought. And that works with my father. I'm former military. My father is a retired police officer. But I'm probably still one of the most, I believe in Black liberation. But I can see what you said for people that think linear would make a great connection because
it was like she said, I said, what's the penalty for me being high? He goes, Fields, you're right. So again, I can sit there and try to defend, well, he was high. No, I'm not even going to defend that. So let's assume he was the highest person you ever saw. What's the penalty for being the highest person you ever saw? It's not me under your knee for 8 minutes until I die on a street.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah.
It's until I'm proven guilty. So again, that logic, because I wasn't going to argue with him. He goes, Fields, you're right. Now, I don't know if I changed him. I don't know. Right? But that logic that, okay, because again, he got to think of it a different way as opposed to me defending that, he was high and he shouldn't have been high and he was super strength. Well, so he was super strength. So he was Shaq. So he was super strength. What's the penalty? So the problem is everybody saw the penalty was that he died right there and you were okay with that.
I love where you're taking us here because part of what I hear you saying is as a DEI practitioner, and excuse me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I think I hear you doing here is really talking to an individual who may be resistant to the challenges that Black people have had in these.
Don't even challenge, have no clue of what that was.
Right.
Right.
And you took the time to, as Joyce said, create this linear connection to what's the penalty for being high? Is it death? And what you could have done was just argue.
Correct.
As a practitioner,
or just shut them off.
Or just shut them off, right? And not talk anymore.
Right.
So that's a challenge for, I think, us practitioners in this space.
Yes.
Dealing with those situations where we know in our heart somebody's just dead wrong, but we have to have a conversation about it. Talk to me about some of the ways how does Fields do that without going home angry every day? Like,
Oh no, it's
I
nothing
feel
angry.
for you.
It's actually liberating
Yeah.
because again, if you explain it and the guy goes, well, you know what? I don't care. He should have died. Okay. All right. Now help me with my diversity. No. So part of that is that diversity is tough because you're bringing all kind of people in. And I think it creates creativity. I'll talk to people as long as they're not pulling guns and pulling stuff and talking about, I need to lead the country, stupid stuff. People have these issues because they have these issues, right?
Right.
So, hey, you know what? Somebody says something to me. I said, man, you know what? That's like the guy said, he had it coming. I was like, oh man, okay. I gotta hear
Yes.
the logic behind that. Right.
Yes.
And I sat there patiently. He explained to me, and you all these talking points. I'm not gonna sit here and argue each point. So to the conclusion, let's say he was a serial rapist. He was raping the kid right there in public. What's the penalty?
We call
Well,
that
at least
seeking
in
dangerous
America now, I can
minors.
go to Saudi Arabia, and yeah, they'll do that to you. That's. But the difference, when I understand, is they're here. So part of that is having that conversation, and people are saying things for a reason. Tell me why you said that. I did this. Guy said, well, I said, you know what? I can't agree, but you know what? Sometimes it's like I never thought it that way. In your culture, I didn't know that was an insult. Trust me, that was not my intent to insult you. I
Right.
wasn't. Right now, the person that says, "Yeah, that was my intent," you see what I'm saying? That's a different conversation. I tell the story. Get up in the morning, open my window, and I take a spit out the window. Poof. So my neighbor comes by and goes, "Hey, Fields, hey, how you doing, man? Good." He says, "Hey, man, when you spit out there in the morning, man, that's my wife's flowers are below there." Oh, I didn't know that. Now, if tomorrow morning I get up and I spit out the window, I didn't care what you see what I'm saying? I told you I didn't care what your wife did, right?
Right.
Now, if I'm a neighbor, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna, I didn't know that was Jose's wife stuff. You know what I'm saying? I still like to spit. I'm gonna spit over here, right? So it's having that conversation. Sometimes it's a
Good.
difficult conversation. Hey man, why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
Right? This is why I feel that way. And then having that conversation with people that go, man, hey, Fields, I'm not trying to hurt you or do anything like that. We're trying to get this. So again, that's when that respect comes in. Doesn't mean I'm going to have no beer with this guy. I don't even like this guy. But hey, I know if I walk into the room backwards, it's an insult to this guy. Right.
Right.
So if I care anything about him, I don't do that. So part of that is that conversation. And it's a difficult conversation. And most people don't want to have difficult conversation. They want to yell at you. They want to force you to go to my side of this thing, as opposed to, and we may never agree, right? We may never agree. But at least I understand why you're upset.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Fields, can you, so knowing that this is such a complex lane and it's such a difficult conversation to have, what made you want to enter into this space? Now, I know lived experience, right? Like the three of us have the benefit of having the lived experience of being Black as well. So I know that plays a role into it. But I have a lot of friends that this isn't the work that they choose because they just feel like it's so heavy and so daunting. So what made you say, when you launched on this work, what made you want to enter into that area?
Joy, who said I wanted to do it? I love that.
Yeah.
Part of this, I'm an entrepreneur. We started a magazine. I used to own a NASCAR team. About 25 years ago, I was a partner in a NASCAR team. And so you talk about diversity, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, and we ran, Dr. Pepper was our sponsor, ran for about 2.5 years. It was a challenge way back, this challenge now, challenge way back then. But I walked into the sport with a couple of high profile guys. One guy's name was Joe Washington. He played for the Washington Redskins. He also played for the Oklahoma Sooners. And the other guy's name was Julius Irvin. They call him Dr. Jet. We went in a lot of, and again, the funny thing is people, they say, man, I remember that. And I was always the other guy, right? It was like Joe and Julius. And
I forgot Dr. J was in the NASCAR.
they go, hey, man, that was you. And again, I said, yeah, pull up the picture. Now, then I had a little fro back then. And so it's like, that was you. I was like, yeah, I was the other guy, I think. But it was a tremendous diversity lesson for me. It was a sport where the old man France, who's passed, wanted to diversify his sport because he realized he had every Southern white person on the planet in his sport. But in order for it to expand, he had to get to Chicago and other places. He had to get more folks in. So we went in, made a lot of fanfare, lost a ton of money. It was the sport rejected us. It was almost like a heart operation. I put the perfect heart in and you die. Your body rejected that. So that you see the angst now in that sport 25 years later with Michael Jordan. So just imagine us being there. The thing is, at the end of the day, the people that you would not even expect to say anything to you, because you judge a book, you can't judge a book by its cover. Somebody come up and the tobacco juice dripping out. He's got a Confederate flag as a shirt. He's walking up to you. Oh man, this is going to be a rough conversation, right? He sees Julius Erving. Goes, hey, Dr. J. So all of a sudden he sees Julius, right? On the street. I'm thinking this is probably gonna be a bad day for Fields Jackson. But now you start to see people are people. Then they get off into their little camps, etc. So after we left it, I had a friend that was at the New York Stock Exchange. So I started a magazine. Obama just came into office. The economy was still coming out. So it was a tough time to start, but he was doing some stuff at the New York Stock Exchange around diversity. I started the magazine and we launched. And the power behind that was that my first sponsor was the New York Stock Exchange. Like in your business, when people ask you who else is advertising, when you got a brand new magazine, it's tough to convince people to do that. But when I can say the New York Stock Exchange, that sort of, whoa, okay. So we started that conversation. We started talking about diversity. And the first couple of issues were around diversity around NASCAR. Because even as bad as it was with me, there were companies that were really trying to do some stuff. You see what I'm saying? So it was companies that said, hey, we need this sort of change. So we were writing about them. And then we saw other companies that were doing good things. So we started to do that. The answer to Joy's question as to how I got pulled into that is that we started to have conversations about not what was wrong, but how to fix it. And it fell on a lot of deaf ears because a lot of people didn't hear it. But the people that were trying to fix it saw that as, hey, man, this is a breath of fresh air. That makes sense. This is a breath of fresh air. He's not yelling at me, right? And he's giving me examples of it. If you want to fix this, these are the people that can help you fix it. So we became that thought leader around, okay, best practices. And then as our connections grew, we started to find people from all around the world that were just sharing best practices. So we started to do that. What led to other things was that we're talking to these companies and they said, Mr. Jackson, we're having a tough time hiring people. I'm like, okay, hiring for what? We were looking for interns. And this has happened only about 8 years ago. We're looking for interns. We're going to hire 100 interns. The problem is we're having a difficult time finding diverse interns. We can find all these interns. We're having a tough time finding diverse interns. And there's one of the companies I work with. And I thought it was like patent attorney or something that's tough to find anyway. But it was a sales and marketing job. And I said, you got to be kidding me. So at that time, my youngest, Austin, was down at Clemson. I jokingly said, if you only need 100, I said, you only need 99 now. Because I said, Austin's mama will pack a lunch. He'll be there tomorrow. So with the work I'm doing with the HBCUs, I got a call back from the company 2 days later, said, Mr. Jackson, they said, this is incredible. How did you do this? I said, do what? He said, we're going to pay your invoice on time. We want to do more work with you. I said, well, what happened? He said, we got over 200 resumes the next day. And he said, how did you do this? And I said, how come you can't?
Yeah.
You got the big search firm. So I didn't even argue with him, right? I said, you got the big search firm. I said, you got any more jobs? Because imagine, think about this. I'm an adjunct professor at these schools. So I go in and go, who needs a job? Most of the kids aren't even listening. They're on the phone. I was like, did he say job? Oh, I said, I got 100 interns, right? Here's the company. I want you to apply. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It was,
Yeah.
I became,
It feels sometimes it really
I became a very popular, I became Mr. Jackson. It's like, it wasn't tough for me. So I'm like, hey, you know what? You got any more jobs? They said, yeah. I said, yeah, send them over. So I'm sending them out to the HBCUs, right? And as you guys know, there's over 100 HBCUs. But if you talk to most corporations, they'll tell you, I work with HBCUs. I go, yeah, who? They said, Howard. I go, who else? No, we work with Howard. I said, no, who else? And they go, no, we work with, again, because who are you talking to? And there's nothing wrong with working with Howard. Nothing wrong.
We love Howard. And
I
let me
love
say,
Howard.
I've been to their
I love
homecoming in '96. Wu-Tang was there. So
I
definitely.
love Howard. But I said,
We love Howard.
we talk, and then they'll say, we talk to the HBCU. I said, the HBCU? Because I was like, okay. I said, do you realize there's over 100? They're like, what? Right?
Yeah.
Talent.
So what happens, I'm sending this out to the HBCUs, And I'm just doing it. So, Joy, I didn't see this as a business. I just say, hey, I can get some kids some jobs. I'm in front of these schools. So I'm just sending them out. And I became one of the most popular email addresses on an HBCU campus. Because people would say, hey, you know what? I don't even know who this guy is. I
Right.
don't know who he is. But if you get an email from him, and then so the reverse is the company said they can't find anybody. They're getting kids from Tugelo College and still they're like, where the heck is they're Googling places they don't even know exist. Right. The
Word to the
sad part
wise.
is
Word to our
the
listeners.
sad part is that they may have a plant that's right up the street and they go, man, you know what? And that now you start to see the HR people. Did you know there was an HBCU? And then they'll say, what's an HBCU? And it gets even, what's an HBCU? Right?
Yeah.
Did you know we can't find? We've been having this struggle all this time,
Yeah.
and there's a HBCU right around the corner from us. You're like, what are you talking about? So now you start to see, now you start to peel back that thing. You say, okay, now I really see I do have a problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Right.
yes. Hey,
I've
Phil,
got a
speaking of that problem, have you ever had, Anthony, I didn't mean to cut you off, but have you ever seen, because I think it's twofold, like the awareness thing, and then we're like a culture of trust, right? So some of the reason why even the students feel connected is because it's coming from fields. Have you ever seen a
that's 100%, and it elevated during the pandemic, and it also elevated because right after George Floyd, right, there were, and we need to do an analysis of this. I'm giving $100 million to HBCUs, and there was all kind of crazy numbers out there, right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving $1 billion. You know, this Miss Kenzie, whoever her husband gave $20 billion. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, right? And then Trump was running around saying, well, I gave more money since Abraham Lincoln. What does that even mean? If you're giving all that money, where is it?
Right.
Right? So $20 million to Howard. I'm not saying they don't need the money, but oh, okay, maybe they get a couple of trees or something. $20 million to Shaw. I better see some equipment. I better see some shovels. You see what I'm saying? So what happened is all this money, all this commitments were false commitments. They ain't give a dime. There's no accountability.
No
Ain't nobody got no
accountability.
money.
Check the box.
None. Right?
Say I
And
did
then all of a
something.
sudden people showing up on your campus taking pictures, right? And all this stuff like that. So to your point, Joy, the credibility, you're here just for a photo op. You're here with the band just for a photo op. Right?
And we see that.
I had kids tell me there's all these hackathons and botathons and all stuff like that. A couple kids actually won the hackathon. They won. Asked the company for a job. They start shuffling paper. Job? What I won your contest. So what was the end goal of this contest? What was it? All right. So I won your contest. I asked you for a job, and next thing you know, I'm down in HR talking to some circle. So it's just the credibility and trust. So what I wasn't looking to do, and I'm not the only one, but if Mr. Jackson sends a job over, there's some accountability because hey, I can't find anybody. And like I said, okay, if you only need 100, Austin will be there tomorrow. So I'm gonna ask him. So there's gonna be a feedback loop, right? Okay, I couldn't find anybody. So what happened to the 100, 200 kids we sent over? And the reputation I got was that if you're playing, don't do this with Mr. Jackson. That's the reputation I got. Because if you're for real, he's going to show up with a bus full of kids tomorrow. So if you're playing, this is not the one to
Yeah.
be playing with, right?
So I think
The other side of that is that
yeah.
if you really mean that, we flip your numbers real quick.
Yeah.
So it goes from I can't find anybody to guess what? You go some schools, and guess what? Now the dean, the president, the chancellor, they see that you're hiring their kids. So if I ask the president of a college to send some kids over, usually they're pretty strong. Usually, so if the dean sends you over, it's usually not the kid about ready to get thrown out of school. That's just been, you know what I'm saying? So these are some solid citizens, right?
Mm-hmm.
That just need an opportunity, right? The only thing is that if you don't want to if your intent was not to do the opportunity, then this was spinning wheels and getting people frustrated. So that's why we tend to stay away from those folks. Does that make sense? I'm going to stay away from you because guess what? When I show up and say I got 100 jobs, I really have 100 jobs. And I want you to apply because I'm going to put you in contact with the person that can hire you right now.
So the
Right now.
lesson learned today and what I hear from Fields for our listeners is be accountable. When the rubber hits the road, be accountable, be real. Don't check the box, organizations. We see you when you're checking the box out here. And be authentic about your efforts. Be authentic about your efforts.
And even if the authenticity is, hey, I ain't hiring no black people. Thank you.
Be honest.
I'm not, thank you. That's very honest.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to go buy a new suit. I'm not going to fly to you.
Right.
We ain't feeling black people over here. Okay, you know what? I love that. Thank you. I kiss you. Right?
Yes.
I ain't going to spend no time wasting them with you. So the authenticity goes both ways. I'm not going to be mad, right? But I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should have that same decision when I'm buying your products too. You see what I'm saying? So that's just me.
Yes.
That okay, you don't want me to work there, so maybe I shouldn't be buying your soft drink. So that's just me. That's just me. But the thing is, if you genuinely want to do this, let me get you in the best position with the people on the campus that now know what you're looking for, right? And if they know what you're looking for, they're going to send 1,000 people. But guess what? I call the dean and go, hey, you know what? Can you send me your top 25 students? I don't have a problem. I don't.
Right.
And most of them go, Mr. Jackson, is you know what? I got 50. I go, no, let's not be greedy.
That's my experience too. The schools, from working in schools, we're gonna try to push that limit.
Oh,
what about
what about Thelma? Hey, you know what? Just give me your top 25. Right? We'll worry about her a little bit later. All right.
We're gonna switch gears here a little bit. We're gonna switch gears and get to our next segment, and this is our listener question. So Phil, every show we've got a question comes in from a listener. We don't know what the question is, what the topic is, but it's a question for you to answer, and how Joy and I will pipe in where we feel that, but it's for you.
Sure.
So this question comes from Michael. Michael's from Omaha, and Michael says, when has diversity reached the point where it is impacting business? So I think, Michael, what you're trying to say, Michael, when has diversity reached the point when it is impacting business?
I'm not sure with that one, but it's always impacting business from my perspective. If you want to, diversity doesn't matter if you're selling to yourself. And once you get outside of yourself, right? If you're a man, then it's a woman. And it's there's something that comes in. You see what I'm saying? So the second you get outside of yourself, and if you want to look at new markets, right? If you've got a captured market, then fine. And I even tell that black people say, I'm diverse. I said, no, it's all black people. You're not diverse. Well, I'm blah, blah. I said, no, you're not diverse. You're all black people, right? So if you're selling to all black people, then that's fine, right? The second you start selling outside of that market, you need to look at different perspectives. So diversity is getting the right people into your organization that can help you navigate those different markets, because different markets are different, not because of they're different because they're different. You know, what matters in this market is, can we make that profitable and make profit in that market, not exploiting people and doing all that stuff like that. But so diversity, to me, there's always a business case. Most people don't see it that way.
So let's go there, Phil, because it's interesting you say that. And this has been a big conversation in this space about the business case, And I was one that touted the business case too, and I believe in the business case. But what I've discovered in my space is that the challenge is companies who focus a lot on just the business case, and then they look at trying to hire diverse people, and suddenly they look at their numbers the next year, and when the business isn't profitable, the assumption is I shouldn't hire black folks, or I shouldn't look at hiring more women because I did the work and my spreadsheet doesn't show that I improved. And a lot of organizations, I'm thinking of Harvard Business Review. Harvard Business Review, about 25 years ago, they were sort of the foundation of this discussion about the business case for diversity and how diversity of thought, diversity of creativity, cultural perspectives helps build businesses and grows the bottom line ultimately. And even Harvard Business Review, in fact, in 2020, I think they came up with an article that said, hey, we still believe in that philosophy. We're the ones that started this, but what we're missing in this space is companies are focused too much on looking at numbers and how many people I hire, and they're not looking at what we're doing to change the culture. And in fact, one of the phrases they used, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was looking this up yesterday. Harvard Business Review quoted, they said, increasing diversity does not by itself increase effectiveness in business. What matters is how organizations harness diversity and whether it is willing to reshape its power structure.
Correct.
So when you think about the business case, how do you marry that to the power structure? Because the power has to change.
If you don't marry that, then you're not serious about diversity. So it's always the business case, right? So if you don't believe in diversity, and that's what it comes down, if you don't believe in this, then there's no issue. Do what you're going to do, right? So you believe in diversity for what reason? Usually it's for growth, right? So again, just from the basic, hey, I don't believe in diversity. Okay, fine. Thank you for sharing that. I believe in diversity. Okay, so what's your level of commitment? So let's start where you are. Let's go to your board. I believe in diversity. I walk in the room and it's all white men. Okay, it doesn't mean you don't, right? But if you believe in this, right? How come there's and just forget about black and white. How come there's no women in here? Well, I can't find it. Really? I just walked past 50 women on the way into. Part of that is that commitment comes from your business segments. Part of diversity is where are you at? There's a realization as to where are you now? And that's what they will share my numbers. Okay, even if it's bad, if it's at 2%, are you comfortable with the 2%? Right? And usually what happens is that, and especially global companies, you're selling into diverse markets, like it or not, right? If I'm selling stuff on the south side of Chicago, okay, the guys from Harvard, okay, right? So they're smartest, let them get out of the car on the south side of Chicago. It may not be a good day for them. May not, right? So part of that is that your segment, you want to have people represent the products. You want to have people that can communicate in a certain way. So what does that look like? Now, if that market that you're trying to penetrate is losing money, well, yeah, then maybe that diversity didn't work in that market. But again, that becomes a business decision as to maybe you don't have the right messaging, you don't have the right marketing, you have the right salespeople. So there's things that come into play as opposed to I just hired 10 black people and magically it was supposed to change. No, part of that is that what is it? What is your objectives? Who is your market? Who are you trying to serve? And the companies, in my view, that get this, just ones that came out of the pandemic. Right? We were working with a company, Merck. Merck is a big pharmaceutical company. One of the big things with the pandemic was that just culturally, even though this vaccine was going to save me, I didn't trust it. Culturally, there's stuff that happened to black people that's been for years, from Tuskegee to all kind of stuff. That guess what? And then Trump, all of a sudden, he didn't believe, and all of a sudden, he came up with this miracle, and I didn't trust him. Right? So you can say anything you want, right? So part of that was that how do we how do we get this message into a diverse community?
I think
Well, you need
part
to have some thought leaders. You need to have some people in there, and so companies started to go after pastors. They started to say, well, who is trusted in this community, right? So
Faith-based, yeah,
you can have,
very
you can
faith-based.
have everybody from Harvard, right? And last one, let's just say, I don't believe in diversity, right? People go, I'm not going to lower my standards. So okay, so Harvard. Let's assume everybody, the smartest people on the planet, are at Harvard. Right? Well, good luck selling to the people at Princeton. Good luck walking in the people at Princeton and going, hey, we got it all figured out. You guys sit over here, right?
right.
Diversity opens that up to different kind of folks, right? So you got people that, you walk into this and, we're selling products to women. You walk in the room and it's all men sitting there. And again, I don't think they're doing it on, and this is just me, I don't think they're doing it on purpose. But you look around, that other voice comes and goes, hey, do you realize there's all men in here? Well, and then you get mad. What do you mean? I said, there's all men. So maybe the reason you're not selling this stuff is that, so do any of you guys have wives? Do you have a daughter? So bring somebody else in this room to give you a different perspective.
That takes
That's
part.
how we look at the business case.
That
And the end of the day, Anthony, it comes down to numbers. It comes down to numbers. So if you've got no diversity on your board, me saying, hey, I don't believe in diversity, in order to change that, I got to get people in here that don't look like you.
Well, and I think it comes down to numbers, but I also think it comes down once you have those numbers, what are you doing to build your culture? Because otherwise,
Correct.
people are
Because I'll leave. I'll
people
leave.
aren't numbers, so you can
And
measure
and that's
everything
the
you
part
want.
in recruiting that people, whenever I help companies build a recruiting strategy, I'm like, retention has got to be a part of your
Yes.
recruiting strategy. And under retention, culture. right?
Yeah.
If you have a culture where people want to be there, guess what? You're going to have so much organic recruiting because I'm
Yes.
going to go tell my brother and
Yes.
my sister and my cousin down the street, and I'm
Yes.
going to post on social media that,
Right.
I
Yes.
like working. For example, I want to work at Merck because Merck
Yes.
really believes in it or whatever have you. And
Right.
so, but I think sometimes people, they spend a lot of money on these recruiting plans and think about it from an external new talent lens. And
Right.
what
But
about
Joy,
keeping the
it's they're
great
they're
people?
checking the box.
Yep. They're
They
spending
They're
so
money.
checking
again,
them out.
they're checking the box. I take a couple pictures. I bring in a couple black people. Right?
Right.
No.
Or I hold up my spreadsheet and says I hired 3 more people this year. That doesn't matter what your
Yes.
spreadsheet says
No.
if people don't believe in you.
And
So
and 5 more left, right? We're keeping that part out
yeah,
though.
yeah, and 5
Oh,
more
and
left.
guess what?
Right.
There's 20 more that's about ready to leave.
Yeah. Well,
But then there's other companies, right? That like somebody says, I can't find single moms. I know companies that single moms love working there. Why? Right? Because guess what? They have a culture that's, you know what? We're going to do what we need to do to keep single moms. So guess what? Single moms, to your point, Joe, they're at the hairdresser talking about, girl, you need to, you know what I'm saying? You need to go here.
right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's something that, guess what? Yes, there's numbers, right?
Yep.
But it's also how am I treated? What happens when I walk through the door? How do I feel?
Yes.
That's part of that ongoing discussion. So diversity to
That's the
me is
belonging.
the toughest position in any company is diversity.
It's the belonging piece.
Because
That's what you just said. I appreciate. Yeah. It's you can have
it's
the
the
diverse
toughest
as you
one.
want, but if
Because
people don't
again, if I'm a salesperson, I hit the number, right?
Mhm.
And either I hit the number or I don't. Right?
Right.
With diversity, in theory, every time a new person comes into the building, you're supposed to completely reboot. That's the thing. Now you start reading all the rules and no, no, no. I brought the person's got a disability. So guess what? I may have to change my bathroom. You see, I have to reboot.
I like
So the
diversity.
people that are really good at that
Yes.
are college coaches, ironically. Because guess what? The pros, you get to stay there and you could be Tom Brady and you played at 50 years old. Guess what? You know what? As a college coach, I could have a 5-star recruit. He's going to graduate. So I have to reboot. Right?
Yes, I love
I got to
that.
go when now. I just can't say, hey, you're a 5-star. I got to train you up. I got to get you in I have to work with you. You see what I'm saying? I got to work with you.
Yes.
I love it. It reminds me of too. Do you guys remember in the 90s where there was this point of time where I think it was the Lakers built this dream team and they had like Shaq and they had like almost everybody in the NBA that you could want on one team. And then they were like, well, why aren't we winning? And Phils, I think you're saying it so great. The
Culture.
sports analogy is awesome of like, you've got the culture, right?
The
Like you
culture.
brought all
The
this
culture.
great talent, but if you haven't taken time to figure out what makes that talent work,
What
if you
makes that
haven't
talent
rebooted,
tick? Why do I want
yes,
to be here? Why, if I'm a 5-star, and again, I saw a glimpse of that with my son, Austin. Austin played down at Clemson. I thought football was football until, hey, this is a business thing. This ain't football. This is business.
Right.
Right? And so
Right.
Austin, down at Clemson, Austin had a personal chef. I'm like, what? So again, if I'm playing, if I want to go someplace, that's the beacon is I want to go here. Why? Right?
Yes.
So just
Why
like
do
a
I feel like I
company,
belong? Yes.
why do I
because I
just like
feel
a
like I
company, and there's companies out there that guess what? If I'm putting in 80, 90 hours a week, I'm doing all this crazy stuff, right? Why don't I go to some place where they actually pronounce my name right?
Hmm. I feel like I
Right?
belong.
I feel like, hey, you know what? They're asking me questions about, what did
Yeah.
your granddaughter do, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to I'm walking in, I'm on eggshells, and everybody's walking around. So again, it comes down to me. It comes down to leadership. It does,
Absolutely.
and you guys know there's certain leaders. I had bosses in my career that just loved them, and they'd say, "Hey, Fieldsy, you know what? I need to go out and we need to move the building."
Yeah.
And I know we can't move the building, but everybody's out there in the parking lot trying to push this building because he said something. I've had bosses that say, I need you to say 5 minutes. Not only am I not staying 5 minutes,
Right.
I'm exploding. I'm not running out the door. I'm exploding out the door. I'm not doing anything extra for this person, period. To me, that's a culture.
Thank you
And you've
so
got cultures
much.
where, guess what? It's open, it's rewarding,
Yeah.
it's people get promoted. There's not all these games. those are the ones that I think have figured out diversity, right? And so when somebody says, well, I need somebody to talk to, I said, well, you need to, if they have the time, talk to this person because whatever they're slipping in the drink, whatever they're doing, they're the motivators that keep that whole team going. There's places you guys know that people they hate it. It's just,
Quiet quitting.
Phil, so this has been, again, a great way to start. I'm hoping that our Monday mornings can always start like this because we just need to have these spaces where we can come and have these conversations. So we want to really thank you so much for
oh,
being
my pleasure.
one of our first inaugural guests. I mean, we're on episode 3 and we're hoping to be around for years having these conversations. We're hoping we can have guests like you come back and have additional conversations because we know that the work you're doing is going to create change. And so how we can elevate your voice, our mission together to continue to make some of those changes is truly important, and be able to have the real conversations about the challenges too. We want to connect with other people that really want to make an impact in this space. And we're not saying, we know historically there's very few companies that have got this right historically, and we understand that. So we're not expecting that, but be authentic about where you are in your journey, be authentic about wanting to be changed, and we'll want to
But
connect.
Joy, even with that, it's like my granddaughter. If I see her trying, just genuinely, I see her trying, she's trying to read, I'm
Yes.
going to help her. When you see those companies, no matter what their start is, or how it came, if it's genuine, hey, you know what? I haven't figured this out. We're looking to do this, and we're going to have some tough conversations.
Yes.
And that it's in that authenticity that you pick
Yes.
up, you know what? I know the guy he just quit the Klan. He just quit the Klan. But for whatever reason, right?
Right.
Yes.
I sense some genuineness here that, okay, how do we, now I'm not going to just lay down and just let's see how we can move this thing forward. What you need to read this, you need to do this. The guy goes out and does it. Okay, what's next? You see what I'm saying? You start to see where, you know what? I never thought of it. Like the guy told me, George Floyd had it coming. Now, I don't know if I changed it. At the end, he goes, Fields, I never thought of it as opposed to, right? He was going to keep continuing that, not with me, for whatever reason he was comfortable to say, but I'm pretty sure in circles he was yelling at. He had it coming. No.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he went back in circles. Yeah, even if he had it coming, was he supposed to die? So even in that, they may throw him out of that circle, right? Because he asked that kind of question. So once you determine that people are, for whatever reason, we just lost a big government contract because we have no diversity. Whatever that reason was, let's see how we can get you going forward. Those are the conversations I love to have. And that's when you're having those conversations, that's as quickly as you can get to that, to me, that's when it becomes enjoyable. Now you can just collect a check and that happens, right? But that becomes enjoyable because now people are implementing your work. You're seeing that all of a sudden the diversity numbers increase. Hopefully the sales increase, and now all of a sudden you're not even talking about the business case. It's just good business.
Exactly. That was my
all it
point.
was
When you
good
create a sense of
business.
belonging, the business will take care of itself. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fields, for joining us today on Breaking Barriers. We really appreciate it. A big shout out to our sponsor, Kirkwood Community College. We wouldn't be able to do this without you presenting this. And all our other sponsors, we want to say thank you. We'd love to hear from you. Hit us up with your questions. If you got comments, suggestions for the show, info@toprankedtalentsolutions.com. Hit us up. Special shout out to our listeners. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. We appreciate that. Help us grow our subscriber base. Share it, like it. When you see it posted online, make sure you share it and on your favorite podcast. And we really appreciate your time. Joy, anything else on your end?
Not at all. It's just been a great morning, great conversation of impact too, right? That's what's been important. And that's one of our goals. We're talking to real here. We're breaking barriers here, but we're having real conversation and dialogue.
Take whatever you heard on your journey, folks. Change hearts and minds. Do what you can and break some barriers. We appreciate your time.
Advancing equity is not a one-year project. It's a generational commitment.
There are too few people in the world willing to be the domino, too few people willing to take that fall.